Dirk Nowitzki is not only one of the best international players ever, but one of the greatest players in NBA history, period. The unassuming German giant who played for the Dallas Mavericks his entire career did what people thought was impossible at the time, and that was beating an NBA super team comprised by LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. Dirk, who was also a pioneer in the game in terms of positional basketball, being a 7-foot big man that is a legitimate threat from the three-point line, being a pioneer in the stretch four prototype that influenced the way basketball has been played for the last 15 years. To get a greater understanding of how amazing Dirk Nowitzki truly was and how much he had to overcome, we'll start at the beginning. Dirk Werner Nowitzki was born in West Germany in 1978 and was raised by two athlete parents. His mother was a professional basketball player, and his dad was a professional handball player. So in a sense, basketball was in his blood. However, Dirk didn't automatically gravitate towards basketball and preferred other sports, most abundantly tennis. He excelled in the sport and became a ranked youth player in Germany with a chance to eventually go pro when he's older. He eventually put down the racket due to being teased for his height, often being called a freak, which is when he decided to pick up the basketball at the age of 15. Whilst playing for his local boys basketball club, he was spotted by former German pro Holger Geschwinder, and with a combination of his height and potential, Holger offered to coach him 3 or 4 times a week. After getting the approval of Dirk's parents, Holger began to put Dirk through very unorthodox training methods, where there was an emphasis on shooting and passing, rather than post moves and tactical drills, which was standard for a prototypical big man. Holger also rejected weight training, believing it was unnecessary friction. Also in unconventional fashion, Holger wanted to make Dirk a complete player off the court, so encouraged him to learn how to play an instrument and read literature. After a year of coaching, Dirk improved so much that Holger told Dirk that he had a decision to make. Either he continues how he is and becomes one of the best players in Germany, or he takes his training to the next level and becomes one of the best players in the world. Dirk chose to reach for the stars and start his pro journey. Dirk began training 6 days a week with the players of DJK Würzburg, a professional basketball team in the German 2nd Division and future German internationals. And in the summer of '94, at just 16 years old, Dirk signed his first professional contract. His first official trainer was a man by the name of Pitt Stahl, and he had the vision of playing the tall teenager as an outside scoring forward rather than an inside scoring center to utilize his shooting skills, which was seen as obscure in the time of 2 paint threat big men. The first year as a pro was very difficult for Dirk. He was still only 16, meaning he had to go to school, and with his grades slipping, he had to spend more time studying than working on his game. This led to him often being benched and screwing up key team concepts. In his second year as a pro, he found his feet more. He became a starter and became a regular double-digit scorer, often being regarded as the best German talent of his generation. He proved this further the next season by leading the team in scoring, averaging 19.4 points per game and leading DJK Würzburg to 2nd in the division. Despite this, Dirk wasn't yet on the radar of NBA scouts because although he was putting up impressive numbers, he wasn't even playing in the best league in Germany, let alone Europe. His last season in Germany was a complicated one for Dirk. On one hand, he had officially completed his education in Germany, but on the other hand, he had to partake in mandatory military training for the year. Despite this, Dirk managed to average 28.2 points per game, and DJK Würzburg were promoted to the 1st Division, and he won German Player of the Year, which caught the attention of NBA scouts. Dirk was invited to the Nike Hoop Heroes Tour to play against NBA players such as the likes of Charles Barkley and Scottie Pippen, where he outplayed Barkley and even dunked on him. His draft stock began to rise. Additionally, on March 29, 1998, Nowitzki was chosen to play in the Nike Hoop Summit, an international basketball all-star game held once a year, which features the USA basketball select team against a world select team of international players. Dirk dropped 33 points, collected 14 rebounds, and shot 6 for 12 from the field. A multitude of European and NBA clubs wanted to acquire his services, and as a result, he entered the NBA draft. Dirk was quickly considered a lottery pick and was projected to go to the Sacramento Kings with the 7th pick in the draft, a team who already had European players, but he fell to the Milwaukee Bucks at pick number 9 and was traded to the Dallas Mavericks in a multi-team trade, which also saw Steve Nash traded to the Dallas Mavericks. Steve Nash and Dirk became best friends, and they were the foundation to a Mavericks team that were looking to compete for a championship in the near future. Considering that the Mavericks had not made a playoff appearance for 8 years at the time of the '98 draft. The rookie, however, got off to a very rocky start. The NBA went into a lockout due to a disagreement between the NBA owners and the National Basketball Players Association over the league's salary cap system and player salaries, meaning that the NBA season did not start straight away. Dirk went back to DJK Würzburg and played 13 games for the club until it was time to return for the shortened 50-game 1998-99 NBA season. Dirk greatly struggled his rookie year. He was being overpowered by forwards and centers not yet adjusting to the physical nature of the NBA in comparison to European basketball, and he was being killed on defense. On top of all of this, he was struggling to handle the expectations of being a lottery pick that is supposed to alter the trajectory of a losing franchise, being heavily criticized by Mavs fans. He came off the bench for most of the season and averaged 8 points per game in 20 minutes. The Mavericks won 19 of 50 games, and Dirk was seriously considering going back to Germany to play basketball. Like in Europe, things started to change in his second year in the NBA, and it was greatly to do with new owner Mark Cuban. Halfway through the 1999-2000 season, the Mavericks team owner Ross Perot Jr. sold the franchise to internet billionaire Mark Cuban for $280 million. Mark greatly invested in the team and turned the franchise around. He restructured the franchise and attended every game, bought the team a private jet to travel to games in, and as a consequence, he increased the team's revenue to $100 million per season. The goal was to create the perfect environment to build a winning culture, and this helped Dirk improve to a player that averaged 17.5 points and 6.5 rebounds in his second year, placing second in the Most Improved Player award voting. After this season, with the improvements of Dirk, Nash, and big man Michael Finley, the Mavericks officially had their big three and were looking to make a playoff appearance, and they did. In the 2001 season, Dirk averaged 21.8 points, 9.2 rebounds, and 2.1 assists per game to become the first Maverick ever to make an All-NBA team when he was selected to the third team. The Mavericks finished with a 53-9 record, making their first playoff appearance in 11 years. In the first round, they beat Utah Jazz with Hall of Famers John Stockton and Karl Malone in 5 games, but lost to state rivals San Antonio Spurs in the second round in 5 games. The Mavs now had a good foundation to build upon. Over the next few years, Dirk became one of the best players in the league, and now the expectations were more than just making the playoffs, but legitimately competing for a championship. In the 2001-02 season, he signed a 6-year, $90 million extension, making him the face of the franchise, and this coincided with him making an all-star appearance and winning more games. 2003 saw the Mavericks make the Western Conference Finals for the first time when they played the Spurs and lost in 6 games. The Mavericks couldn't get over the hump, so changes had to be made in order to legitimately compete for a championship. Steve Nash didn't see the Mavericks as somewhere he would like to spend the rest of his career, and when free agency hit just before the 2004-05 season, he returned to the Suns, where he went on to win 2 back-to-back MVP awards. Dirk lost a close friend and a great teammate, and the Mavericks had to go in a different direction. Additionally, halfway through the season, coach Don Nelson resigned, leaving Avery Johnson at the helm. Despite all of the chaos throughout the organization, Dirk managed to average career highs of 26.1 points, 9.7 rebounds, 1.5 blocks, and 3.1 assists per game. Becoming the focal point of the Mavericks paid off because the next season, Dirk and the Mavs made their first finals appearance in the history of the franchise. The 2006 season saw the Mavericks win 60 games and place 4th in the Western Conference. Dirk was second in MVP, voting behind Steve Nash, averaging 26.6 points, 9.0 rebounds, and 2.8 assists. He continued this high standard of play into the playoffs by sweeping the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round, beating longtime rivals San Antonio Spurs in the second round in a hard-fought 7-game series, and then facing former teammate and MVP Steve Nash in the conference finals. The first 4 games of this matchup saw the game tied at 2 apiece, but Dirk had a Game 5 explosion, scoring 50 points to put the Mavs up 3-2 and closed it out in Game 6. They faced a Miami Heat team in the finals with a third-year Dwayne Wade and an aging Shaquille O'Neal, and were the favorites going into the series, and for good reason. They went up 2 to start the series, and in the third game, they were up 15 late in the game. But the momentum shifted not only in this game, but for the series. The Heat came back to win Game 3 and went on to win Games 4, 5, and 6 in the NBA championship. Dirk played below his usual standard, and people were skeptical on whether or not he could be the one to lead the Mavericks to a championship. The next year, Dirk came back with vengeance, joining the 50-40-90 club, shooting a career-best 50.2% from the field and recorded averages of 24.6 points, 8.9 rebounds, and 3.4 assists, and led the Mavericks to a franchise-high 67 wins and the #1 seed in the Western Conference. As a result, Dirk was crowned the MVP of the league, becoming the first European player in history to receive the honor, and the Mavericks were confident going into the playoffs, looking to make another finals run, knowing that they have the best player in the world on their team. This high that the Mavericks fell off a cliff real quick when they were beaten by the 8th seed Golden State Warriors, marking it the first time an 8th seed had beaten the #1 seed in a best-of-7 series in NBA history. The embarrassing playoff loss lingered over the Mavs organization for a few years until the 2010-11 season. The 2010 off-season was one of the most revolutionary free agencies in NBA history due to how it impacted player movement across the league. That summer, LeBron James, who was widely considered as the heir to the NBA throne, was a free agent, and he made the decision that he will be leaving the Cleveland Cavaliers in order to join the Miami Heat. This sent shockwaves around the NBA world, as people thought that LeBron joining Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, thus creating a super team, means that no other NBA team has even a chance of winning a championship in this era, and they could potentially be the greatest team ever assembled, with LeBron predicting that they would win 7 championships during his Miami Heat introduction. For the Dallas Mavericks in the 2010-11 season, Dirk got injured halfway through the season, but they still managed to finish as the 3rd seed with 57 wins, with Dirk making his 10th All-Star appearance. The Mavericks defeated Portland in the first round of the playoffs in 6 games, and then shockingly swept the 2-time defending champions, the Los Angeles Lakers, with Kobe Bryant in the conference semifinals. After this win, the Mavericks were seen as legit contenders to make the finals to battle against the Heat. But first in the conference finals, the Mavs had to face off against a young but extremely skilled Oklahoma City Thunder team with their all-NBA duo of Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. In Game 1, Nowitzki scored 48 points, and in Game 4, with the Mavericks leading the series 2-1, Nowitzki scored 40 points to rally his team from 99-84 fourth-quarter deficit to a 112, 105 overtime victory, and the Mavericks ended up winning the series in 5 games, sending them to the finals. Dirk was facing the Miami Heat in the finals for the 2nd time of his career, but this time they were the underdogs to a Miami Heat team that were dominant all throughout the regular season and stormed through the playoffs in an extremely competitive Eastern Conference. During the Game 1 loss in Miami, Dirk tore a tendon in his left middle finger. However, the MRI came back negative, and Dirk vowed that the injury would not be a factor. In Game 2, Dallas came back from an 88-73 deficit, and Dirk displayed his clutch gene, making a driving left-handed layup over Bosh to tie the series at 1-1. But the opposite occurred when Miami took a 2-1 series lead after Nowitzki missed a potential game-tying shot at the end of Game 3. Dirk was questionable for Game 4 of the finals due to the flu, carrying a 101 degrees Fahrenheit fever, but this didn't stop LeBron and Dwayne Wade from making fun of Nowitzki before the game. Dirk decided to play, and he hit the game-winning basket to tie the series yet again, drawing comparisons to Michael Jordan's flu game against Utah in '97. Dallas went on to win the next 2 games, with Dirk scoring 10 fourth-quarter points in the series. Clinching game in Miami. The 2011 NBA championship was the first in the history of the franchise, Dirk Nowitzki being named the NBA Finals Most Valuable Player and beating the odds against a super team. This ended up being the end of the Mavericks championship window, with Dirk, as the lockout meant that the defending champions lost core players such as Deshaun Stevenson, J.J. Barea, Peja Stojakovic, and Tyson Chandler in the 2011 preseason. Between 2011 and 2016, the Mavericks never made it out of the first round of the playoffs, and Dirk struggled with injuries as he got older. The 2019 season was his last year in the league, and he went on a farewell tour, breaking Kobe Bryant's record for the most seasons in the NBA with 21. He played his final NBA game, recording a double-double with 20 points and 10 rebounds in a 105-94 loss to the Spurs, finishing 6th in all-time scoring. In his last year as a Maverick, he was able to play and act as a mentor to the new face of the franchise, Luka Doncic, who opened up the Mavericks championship window once again.